Good morning all. Yes, another video, another live stream on Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to be covering, as it happens, a Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. You'll find that I put the start time for my videos down in the description for anybody who wants to get past all of my rambling and so forth, which of course does happen from time to time. Now, normally my live streams go unlisted, so unless you have subscribed to my channel and you have also clicked the bell button and turned your notifications on, you probably can't actually access the live stream. That's really the only way to make sure you have your notifications turned on as well. So there's three things you have to do. Okay, now, if you want to get access to it though, patrons get access to my live streams. Okay, so now if you haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is I present everything first, then I open up for questions and answers and feedback at the end, and that's your opportunity to sort of have a discussion with me. If there are any problems with the sound or picture, you'll let me know now before I get started, because that's exactly what I'm going to do very, very shortly. This is quite an unusual video because the topic or NPC being discussed is an NPC that very rarely is used by Dungeon Masters. I don't know of too many Dungeon Masters who ever used Daran. And when I think about my own game, the way I used Daran was so minimal. I don't think he really came up that much at all. Hi River RPG channel, how's it going? Alright, sound is good. Picture seems to be working fine. I will be using slides. The Q&A is at the end, so feel free to ask questions after the presentation. You will see my face at the end. Hi Joe, how's it going? Alright, so we are heading to the end of our sequence of Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guides. It's going to be a little bit sad, I have to say. Anyway, let's get on with the show, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. And today's topic is a Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. That's right, Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master Guide. Not for players. I'm sorry, if you are a player, this is the wrong video for you. I have hundreds of videos that players can watch, and I'm sure your Dungeon Master would be happy for you to go and watch, but just not this particular video, because it's going to be full of spoilers. For anybody who is unaware, there are definitely going to be spoilers in this video. Now the topic for today is Daran Edermath's Orchard, or Daran Edermath. He is an NPC in the Lost Mine of Phandelver. If you turn to page 16 of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, it gives you a very detailed rundown of Daran. And the thing I find interesting about Daran is you have a whole lot of missing bits and pieces in there that we certainly want to fill out if we can. Now, Daran Edermath is a retired adventurer. That means in the past he engaged in the same sort of activities that our player characters engaged in. More than likely got into a lot of trouble himself. He currently lives in a little cottage beside an apple orchard. So he's settled down, he's got his cottage, and he's running an apple orchard. Now, whether he's got employees or whether he does it all by his lonesome, who knows? It's going to be, I think, up to the Dungeon Master to decide how to do that. In terms of his description, and it's actually very, very hard to find images that would sort of suit Daran, he is described as being fit, silver-haired, half-elf, and over 100 years old. Now, I know this particular image doesn't have pointy ears, but let's just say in this particular case, maybe it's not a great representation. There is a sort of bit of greying going on in the hair, but it's not silvery. I've got some better pictures, don't you worry. Now, his role in the past, he served as a marshal or herald in the Dragon Coast region long ago. So he was actually engaged in a lot of different sort of activities, keeping the peace. And as we learn, he was also part of a particular faction responsible for trying to keep the peace in the region. Daran's a member of the Order of the Gauntlet that protects others, but he's no longer active. He's not an active agent, which means he probably doesn't do the sorts of things he did before to keep up to speed with what's going on in the region. There are plenty of faction agents in the area that do that sort of thing. Daran is not in the know, so you won't have an awful lot of information that he can provide to the players for whatever reason. He is happy, though, to provide or trade news with his fellow adventurers, with the player characters, and share any kind of information if they share the same sort of virtues that he does. So in other words, if they can exhibit the kinds of virtues, and he's a good man, Daran, he will engage and provide information. If they are a little bit slide under everything, and they show themselves to be sort of not showing the same sort of attributes that somebody from the Order of the Gauntlet would present, then he's probably not going to share any kind of news with them. But Daran has been keeping an eye on his location, and all of the NPCs or townsfolk of Phandelver have actually been keeping an eye on this, because it's not something you can run away from. Daran has been keeping an eye on Phandelver and is really concerned about the red brands that are impacting the townsfolk and the people in this location. He would most certainly like to see something done about it, and the players' characters will hopefully do that. He would like to see the party of adventurers stand against the red brand's leader, Glassstaff. What does he know about Glassstaff? Probably very little, other than the leader is called Glassstaff, and that's it. It's usually about as much as most of the NPCs know about the leader of the red brands. Daran's too frail to go and fight all of the red brand bandits. There's no way that he alone could go and do this. He would like to. He may be able to take down one bandit, but if he were to take down one bandit, then of course the rest of them would sort of just swamp him and he would be done for. So he's been sort of biding his time and just watching it and waiting, although it certainly will be getting on his goat that so much trouble has taken place and so many good people have been hurt while he's waiting for something to develop, in the hope that the other factions and other organisations will actually do something about it. Now, would he have contacted the Order of the Gauntlet about the issues in Phandelver? Yes, I believe he probably would. It wouldn't necessarily have been an awful lot of information he could communicate, but I'm sure he would have communicated some sort of information. So what does Daran know about the red brands specifically? Well, the first thing he can tell the players, provided they show the attributes he's looking for, is that the red brands hang out at the Sleeping Giant Tap House, usually getting drunk, getting into trouble, and generally making a nuisance of themselves with Grista. Now, I've already done a video on Grista. If you want to check that out, I've already done a whole video covering the Sleeping Giant and Grista if you want to find out a bit more. He would also be able to tell them that the red brands supposedly have a safe house or a hideout underneath Tresadar Manor. Now, how did he find out this information? Well, as it happens, he's been talking with a number of the townsfolk, and Carp Elderleaf has made it known to him that there is sort of like a secret entrance, he suspects, that he's found, and he was chased off. So there's the information. It's not so much because he's a really nosy person and he's been spying on the red brands. I don't think he would risk that sort of thing. It would be too difficult to deal with, certainly because there isn't anybody to back him up. He will provide the players' characters with a quest. There's one quest listed for Daran, and it is the Old Owl Well Trouble quest. This is where they have to go and find out what's going on at the Old Owl Well, a location which is slightly out of Phandelver. What he knows is that prospectors digging around the ruins of Old Owl Well have reported being chased off by undead creatures. And what he wants them to go and do is he asks the NPCs, the player characters, to go and visit the ruins and find out what's going on there. You know, who's involved, what's going on, and report back. Now, this is information he can then pass on to the Order of the Gauntlet, but also probably to other members within the townsfolk, so that they can be warned not to go into that location and what's going on. The sharing of information within the townsfolk is quite common. It would not necessarily, though, be with the red brands, obviously, because they're the villains, basically. The ruins are an old watchtower from the ancient magical empire Nethril, and his concerns are that given there is an old ruin from an old empire that was very much tied into magic, there's a extremely high risk to the people, the locals of Phandelver. There is potentially dangerous magic that might be dormant, that is becoming more prevalent in the area, and the only way to deal with that is going to be to go and find out a little bit more information. Daran actually has 2 quests for the player characters, and the one I've just talked about, the Old Owl Trouble quest, or Old Owl Well, that's the first one. That's the one that is highlighted. They do not go into the second quest, which is actually to deal with the red brands. Most of the NPCs in Phandelver do have this particular quest. Even if it's not spelled out in the adventure, you just need to follow through and pick up some of the information that is already provided by one of the other NPC sections and just sort of go with that. So a couple of things to think about. What sort of rewards? Daran can't really provide rewards to the players' characters. He can't provide them a reward in the form of gold because he's paying protection money just like everybody else. Nobody gets away from not paying protection money. It would be far too dangerous. He has no treasures or significant treasures that he can provide, but he does have his old suit of armour and his weapons. And if the player characters need that sort of thing and it would assist them, then certainly I would do that. Now, Daran is a character which I feel you could certainly use as a companion NPC. So in other words, if you have a very small party who do not have a lot of player characters playing the game and you need to sort of help support them, that is, as the dungeon master, I would use Daran. He is capable of holding his own. Certainly I would classify him as like level 1, level 2, so you can run him as an NPC, as a fighter, because that's essentially what he is, just like a level 1 or level 2 fighter, and that will assist them in their goals. I would not necessarily put that forth if you have a group or party that are like 4 players, 5, 6 or upward. But if you only have like 3 players, then I would certainly consider using Daran Edermath as an assistant, somebody who will fight alongside them if they need that sort of assistance. Daran's a calm and sensible veteran, so in other words, he's not the sort of person who will be reckless and do stupid things. He's been around a long time, so he knows how to play his cards, and I think that's exactly how you should play the character. His values, or Daran's values, are justice, honour and vigilance. And he is, as I said, a good man. He has good virtues. And he would probably have a big problem hanging out with somebody who didn't present or exhibit those sorts of attributes and values. Daran's connections are very limited. He's been around a long time, but he doesn't have a lot of friends or connections. His only friends and connections consist of the Phandelver townsfolk that have been living there for some time and his orchard. So that means there's probably a large degree of isolation, and with anybody who's been through the process of sort of reaching middle age or old age and they haven't sort of settled down and started a family, there's usually quite a few different regrets taking place for them. And I would suggest to you that he would regret many things about his life. Certainly there would be aspects to his life that he would not regret, but certainly there'd be many aspects to his life that he would regret. He would have a very strong focus on making sure that Phandelver and the people of Phandelver in particular do well, but I suspect that he is regretting not starting a family because there's no mention of Daran Edermath having a family, and I would say that would be top of his list as a regret. So that would be his major flaw, and that he hasn't sort of really planned for later life. He's obviously lived a life that he expected would be cut short because it was so dangerous at some point, and therefore he's never really made plans to extend beyond a certain age. What would Daran know about the Cragmore Castle location? Probably would not necessarily know it. If you decide that he is an NPC that should be able to provide that details, then so be it. But I don't think he has enough information necessarily to be able to provide that. How long has Daran been in this location? There's no sort of mention, but I would imagine if he's got an orchard full of apples, apple trees take a long time to grow. So I would imagine he's been in this location much longer than most other members of the community. So I would say something like 10 years, because usually it takes a good chunk of time for trees to grow, and fruit trees like an apple tree would take a long time to grow and develop. Unless, of course, the orchard already existed and he's taken it over, which I think would be unlikely. So he could well know where Cragmore Castle is. It's really up to you how you approach that. What would Daran know about Gundren Rockseeker and his brothers? I would imagine that they've probably bumped into each other in town. He might know a little bit about the Gundren Rockseekers. I don't think he would know very much other than they are mining and have set up to claim. He probably wouldn't know the location of Wave Echo Cave or what's going on with the Rockseeker brothers in particular. But it's really up to you. I don't think there's an awful lot of information you need to reveal with regard to that character. Harbin Wester. I would imagine that Daran is pretty familiar with Harbin Wester. I don't think he would have a particularly high opinion of Harbin Wester, but I would also imagine he understands the position that Harbin Wester is in, and that even between Harbin Wester and himself and anybody else who might want to assist him, there really isn't enough support to try and drive out the red brands if that needed to happen. What he would know, though, is that Harbin Wester is providing a bounty for orcs that have been raiding in the area, and so use Daran to feed them back to Harbin Wester, the town master, which I've done a video on as well if you need to go and check out that sort of topic. What would Daran know about the Cragmore tribe or Cragmore Goblin tribe? I would imagine he would know they operate in the area. I don't think he would know much more than that. I certainly think he would suggest to the player characters to warn them off engaging in a conflict with them, certainly because they don't usually come into town. Usually most of their activity exists outside Phandelver, along the trade roads and so forth like that, and in the wilderness. So I don't think he would know an awful lot about that particular group. What about the Black Spider? I don't actually think that he would know very much about the Black Spider at all. Remember, he is a retired agent. He doesn't keep up to speed with all these sorts of things. So you don't need to reveal a whole lot of information about the Black Spider through Daran if you felt you needed to. I don't think it's going to be necessary. I don't think he would know about Venom Fang or a dragon flying around or operating in the area near the ruins of Thunder Tree. Now, I've already done a video on Venom Fang as well, so you're welcome to go and check that out, but I don't think Daran would have enough information on that character to be worth sort of saying very much of anything. Now, that covers everything that I have on Daran. I have many videos for the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which are Dungeon Master guides, which you are welcome to go and check out if you want to. I'm sure you'll find plenty of useful information. If that's not your sort of thing, I have hundreds of videos for players and Dungeon Masters that deal with Dungeons & Dragons and Dungeons & Dragons 5e. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, I have a Patreon page where you get access to the unlisted live streams, you get priority on video content that I make, and you also get additional content that I put out from time to time. Also, you can support me by using those affiliate links down in the description to the book depository and Amazon. I have some international links as well for Amazon, since Amazon's not all sort of tied together or linked, and there's also a merchandise shelf as well. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. Make sure your notifications are turned on, otherwise you won't be able to access my live streams. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not done. I am just going to flick over to my face and we'll have a look at the chat. As I've said before, I am quite happy to talk about pretty much anything that people want to talk about. It doesn't have to be this topic. It doesn't need to be the Lost Mine of Phandelver. It's really completely up to you. This is your opportunity. Okay, let's have a look and see what we've got here. I'm going to just scroll up and I'll work my way through. And is my eyes better today or worse? Worse. This is not helping. Okay. All right. So, Rivers RPG channel is here. Joe's here. Hi, how's it going? Is that Brick Boss 101? Hi, how's it going? Okay. Eric's here. Hi, how's it going? Prepared to cook and survive. Hi, Fred. Hi all, thanks for your Lost Mine of Phandelver guides. They have been great for me as a noob or new dungeon master. I'm glad they have been useful to you. That's really good news. Bojawn, I don't know if I've pronounced your name correctly. If I have not, I do apologise. Okay, Jason, what do you got here? Hi, Fred. Will you be covering more dungeon... Dragons of Icespire Peak going forward? Yes, Jason. That is why I have been pumping out the last of the Lost Mine of Phandelver videos as quickly as I can. And I think I really only have 2 more videos planned. And I will talk about that really quickly, but I want to get through the chat first. So I will tell you what's going on, what would be the last 2 videos I will do for the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I'm still waiting on the box set, the Dungeons & Dragons Essentials kit. Sorry about that. I'm in New Zealand. Nothing comes here quickly. If I was in North America or Canada, it would be a different story. Okay, Bojawn. Okay, I took my party to Phandalin for the first time. I felt a bit overwhelmed running all of the NPs as a new DM, while definitely having to watch your videos again, haha. Now, Bojawn, I don't know if I got your name correct, but I do apologise if I didn't. I did a video that talked about Phandalin, and I recommend you only use 3 of the NPCs. There's only 3 that you really need to focus on. The first one being... I believe it's Eldamar Barthen. Is it Eldamar Barthen? I think it's Eldamar Barthen is at Barthen's Provisions when they drop off the wagon of supplies. The only other NPCs that you really need to worry about are those at the Stonehill Inn. Okay, if you deal with those characters, the adventure itself actually lists, and I'll just find the page for you. So page 14 of the Lost Mine of Phandelver. There are 3 locations that they recommend that you get yourself familiar with. That's Barthen's Provisions, the Lion Shield Costa, and Stonehill Inn. I would also say that the Sleeping Giant Tap House would be another one that you really want to sort of consider. I've done videos on all of those locations and NPCs. Okay, so that means that Tomblin, Stonehill, I've done the Innkeeper. Elmar Barthen, there's a video on him, and there's one on Agrista at the Sleeping Giant Tap House, and there's also Lanine Greywind from the Trading Post. Okay, so those 3, I mean it's 4, but I would say 3 or 4. Those are the ones. Don't necessarily present all of them all at once. You can have them come back and then pick up another, hook. The only time it becomes a problem is when your players will insist that they go and talk to every NPC before they go and do anything. Okay? All right. So we'll get rid of that for now and work my way through here. They went to the Sleeping Giant against all the townsfolk advice. That's all right. They nearly died, but somehow escaped by burning the sleeping giant. That's how we left the last session. Okay. All right. Well, they're going to have to deal with the red brands now. I would force the issue. Okay. Whether whether they pursue them, I think pursuing them is perfectly reasonable, unless of course they manage to burn the tap house down and nobody spotted it. I suppose that's possible. It's really up to you whether you think it's going to work in their story or not. So yeah. Okay. All right, Chad. Hi, Chad. You've retracted 2 messages, so either you've had some trouble typing in your message or something. But Chad, feel free to ask questions or give feedback. I'm fine with that. Okay. Right. Daran, why does everyone want to burn down the sleeping giant? I think you've got to understand it's like the 14-year-old solution to everything. Teenagers, when they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, particularly if they're dealing with an issue where they don't know if they can deal with it, it's like, well, let's just burn it down so we don't have to deal with it. It's usually the fallback. It's just something that people tend to do. Harley, how's it going, Harley? Hey, Fred, love your Lost Mine of Phandelver vids. They have helped improve my game greatly. Thanks for everything. You are welcome, Harley. Hopefully I got your name right. Epic Donut 1109. Hey, Fred, after these Lost Mine of Phandelver vids, can we expect more of Curse of Strahd? Yes, you can. The Curse of Strahd, look, to be fair with the Curse of Strahd, the Curse of Strahd is so densely packed as an adventure and such a large book that I won't be pumping out Curse of Strahd videos quickly. They will come out, certainly not on a weekly basis. That's not likely to happen. But when a topic comes up and it becomes apparent and I feel like I need to talk about it and I want to talk about it, I will. I would expect Curse of Strahd videos to extend and continue for many years from now. Okay? Even if we don't wind up with Dungeons and Dragons 5e being the main or newest version of Dungeons and Dragons. So I would expect something like the Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft, since I've run the Ravenloft adventure as well, the original, that those are topics that I will definitely talk about. So yes, you can expect them. If you're looking for a specific video, I mean, people sort of really have to indicate. At this present time, most of my patrons have simply asked that I make videos on the Lost Mine of Phandelver for the community. The Curse of Strahd is certainly up there. General Dungeon Master advice on topics that aren't found on some of the other YouTube channels. And the Rise of Tiamat. Horde of the Dragon Queen has not been so much of a focus for my patrons. And Monster Tactics certainly seem to be high on the list in terms of topics that will come out over time. I need a drink of water, pardon me. Yes, so Epic Donut, if you're looking for a particular topic on Curse of Strahd, then I guess you just need to say something if you want to push it to the top of the list. Patrons, I think they pay anywhere from $1 or $5 a month to sort of steer the direction of what I make. Okay, Daran, my players are in their 30s and they want to burn it down too. Yeah, I know, but you got to remember, just because somebody's 30 years old or 40 years old doesn't mean that their maturity level is that of a 30-year-old. Sometimes people have the maturity level of a 5-year-old. Yep. And the fallback is always to burn it. Hi, John. How's it going? John Murphy Atkins. How is the job hunting going? Well, I'm still waiting on a job. I haven't really applied for too many jobs because it's getting a little bit out of the scope of what I normally do. But there's still a job that is checking my references. A little bit of a problem with the reference check right now, but I'm going to hopefully be able to sort that out fairly quickly. Okay, Mike. Well, I don't know what that means. Mike G. Bro. Bojawn. Thanks. I will definitely take a look at those NPCs. They burnt it in the... They burnt it the middle of the day. So yeah, the red brands are definitely going to know who did it. Yeah, good. So you know what to do. So you bring your red brands and their forces out of their hideout and they're going to wind up moving through the town. That'll make things a lot more difficult. Certainly you can bring them in force now. Just bear in mind, if they're new players, they are probably going to make silly mistakes. So have a few alternative plans if things get really sticky. Okay. Mike G, what do you got here? I'm having a hard time filling in the locations between the vast regions of SKT campaign, Storm King's Thunder campaign, finished Lost Mine of Phandelver, with your assistance before and transitioned, yet my players are feeling overwhelmed. What to do? Okay, look, I mean, you know, I did a video on what's the next adventure after the Lost Mine of Phandelver, and how to transition into other published adventures like Storm King's Thunder, which is probably, out of all of them, the best one to transition into. I know a lot of people don't think that rebooting after the Lost Mine of Phandelver is necessary, but my understanding is that, and I can't really talk to the topic if you're having problems because I don't know what the specifics are, Mike, and therefore it becomes problematic. Unless I have really specifics about your issue, it's very hard to talk to that. So my suggestion to you is kind of come up with sort of a breakdown of the types of issues. I mean, in terms of the players feeling overwhelmed, what are they feeling overwhelmed by? Is it the vastness of the Storm King's Thunder? You know, they started off in just a little town area or a small location, and suddenly they've got to try and save the world from giants. Is that what's overwhelming them? So I need a bit more information to be able to assist you. Bojan, thanks again for all of the videos. Great content. Okay, you're welcome. I don't steer Fred. I just want him to keep making content. Okay. Okay, all right. So while I'm waiting for people to respond to me, that'll be you, Mike, and anybody else who has any questions, doesn't matter what it is, I will tell you the 2 videos that are planned for the Lost Mine of Phandelver. These will be the last ones as far as I can tell, unless somebody indicates otherwise. I noticed there is not a player guide to the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Now, don't freak out. My intention with that video is to make it for your players, so that it will reduce the amount of headache and work you have to undergo when you're trying to run that adventure. Okay, so that literally means it's a video designed for players to look up and watch specifically, with no spoilers, to help guide them through the process of playing that adventure. Now, my biggest problem with that particular video and that content is trying to do it in such a way as I don't give away anything and I'm not too directive. I'm trying really, really hard to make sure that's not going to happen. But I did notice that nobody has done an article, nobody's made a video, nobody's ever done anything. I'm not surprised because most of the Lost Mine of Phandelver videos are mine. Okay, so that is designed for your players to watch if you're running the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And if you're a dungeon master, it's designed so you can watch it, and if you feel it's telling them the right sort of information, then you say, look, I want you to watch this video because this will help you understand how to play through this adventure. Okay? And so if there are specific things, what I've done is I've tried to front load the content to be very specific about the nature of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, and then all of the more general concepts that really apply to pretty much any kind of adventure are at the tail end of the video, because I know a lot of people don't watch past 3 to 5 minutes, which is, sorry, I can't present that much information that quickly. It's too hard. So that's how it's going to be structured. If there are specific things you want me to say in that video, then let me know, okay? Because either in the chat now or down in the comments section of the edited video when I do the edited version of this, okay? The other one is going to be glass staff. Yes, I know people have been asking for that video for a long time. The thing is that glass staff is one of those topics that I really don't feel you need. Glass staff was designed by the design team to get crunched pretty quickly. So you really don't need a lot of information on him because he's not going to get a chance to do very much of anything, okay? Unless, of course, you've changed things and decided to close a lot of the problems that exist with his location and his setup. Okay, all right, Mike, what do you got here? I find that I have to push them along throughout the session constantly. required to ask, what do you do? And where do you go? It seems I have the to offer multi-options or nothing gets done. Okay, so here Mike is, because I've played this adventure. Okay, I've played that adventure, and the problem with Storm King's Thunder is that it actually requires players to take notes. They have to write down notes. I bet that your players never take any notes whatsoever about anything. And that's why they don't know what to do next. Because this adventure drops little tips and hints, and it's only later on in the adventure that it's more directive in terms of where to go next. And so therefore you sort of, you don't know, you're sort of trying to gauge the landscape, you might say, for the adventure as to what's going on. So it's not very easy to figure out exactly what you're doing straight away. So unless they pick up the small hints and they think, okay, well, we went there, this happened, this person said this, well, let's go over here because they said if we go over here we might be able to find out a bit more information, or maybe that's where we need to go next. So it does require the players to really think. And if you've got players who are really there and all they want to do is just kill stuff, and that's quite possibly what they showed up for, then you're going to have a lot of hassles. And if they don't take notes and they don't use their brain, you're going to have to just keep doing what you're doing. I would suggest telling them, look, this type of adventure, you need to take notes, because there's lots of little clues that you need to put together to figure out what's going on and to be successful. Okay? And Mike, if you're running Storm King's Thunder, everything is scattered, so it's very, very hard to find everything. It's part of the reason I only ran 1 or 2 sessions of it. One of my friends actually ran that adventure, and his complaints about the adventure were scathing in terms of trying to find stuff. Walls of text to find information that should have been broken up into paragraphs. Okay. Okay, maybe it is the open and countless things that they can do. Yes, it's very sandboxy. That makes it hard to push them forward, and find their own path. It is very sandboxy to begin with, and even when you're at later points, it can still present itself as being very sandboxy as well. I am pulling in many hooks, but they overlook them or ignore them. Yeah. My suggestion to you is try not to pull in too many different adventure hooks. Try to focus on the hooks that will get them through the adventure. I know it might be tempting to run Storm King's Thunder quite long, but I would suggest running it shorter. Try to chop it down as much as you can. That makes sense. I will communicate it to them that they need to be more involved in their own narrative play and take notes. Yep, that's right. It's going to be really important. Okay, so hi David. Hi Fred. What do you got here? It happened when my players cleared out the Red Brand hideout. They were discussing over an hour what to do with their captured Red Brands and glass staff. Okay. I'm not quite sure what that means. You're probably referring to something that was said, and I'm not sure what's going on there. But hang on, I'll keep reading. I didn't have any way to interrupt them in game, and so it took way too long. After the session, they told me they didn't really enjoy it either. Every encounter was something similar. Okay, so here's the problem with most pre-published adventures. They are usually just consisting of somebody dies. In other words, you just fight it out, slug it out till somebody goes down or somebody runs away. Okay, that's really almost exclusively how all of the Wizards of the Coast adventures play out when it comes to combat. It actually requires you to input another objective. I talked about this yesterday actually, where you need to start using, I'm going to have to do a video on the topic, I can see it now. You need to apply additional objectives to a combat encounter, so it's not just about slug it out and let's have a fight. Okay, otherwise they will feel very much the same, and your players will always sort of resort to generally fighting rather than doing something else. Okay, Runehammer, who was also called Drunkards and Dragons, did a series of videos on I think it was dungeon design, and he talked about objectives and how to use them. Now he uses terrain and miniatures and so forth, and you don't have to do that sort of thing, but you can apply the same sort of concepts. Okay, what else we got here? Chad, sorry, deleted my comments because they didn't seem relevant. Okay, so Chad, your comments, if they're questions and so forth, they don't have to be about the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I keep trying to say that to people, that, you know, if you want to ask a question or you have feedback, you can certainly do that. It doesn't have to be about what the video is being run on. Okay, that's why I do these live, so you have an opportunity to, you know, ask a lot of questions that you wouldn't normally be able to ask, or provide additional content that might be useful for somebody who's watching right now. Okay, all right, so we've got down to the end of the chat, and I think we have come to the end of our discussion, which I'm amazed. So if you have anything you want to say, you better type it in real quick. And my suggestion is, don't type the whole sentence, just say, "Wait, Fred," or "at Fred, wait," so I don't disappear. Oh no, here we go. Lucino. Gosh, I hope I got your name right. I'm struggling as how to introduce the players to how and where. I've never winter they arrive. Okay. Obviously, they will need to go buy equipment. Yeah, I'm not too sure what that means. Okay. They don't necessarily have to go and buy stuff or equipment from Neverwinter. If they want to go back to Neverwinter, they could. I wouldn't stop them. Okay? See you later, Joe. Get Sildar. He is still alive to introduce. Yes, absolutely. Sildar is a good idea. He's not alive. He's dead. Oh dear. All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to lose my voice otherwise. I think this is a good point to stop. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, afternoon, night, early morning, look after your family and your friends and yourself. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.